was fertilized and became wise. I truly grew and thrived. From a word to a word, I was led to a word. From a deed to a deed, I was led to a deed. The children of Europe, raised in her fire and fury, have a history unequaled. Nowhere has witnessed such depths of tragedy or heights of glory. Mimirs Brunnr is dedicated to celebrating both Europe and her children, to stir the sacred waters that animate, and to bring the ancient ways back to the forefront of the European mind. Through our work, we wish to rekindle those ancient embers of the European fire, and to once again hold our ancestors and their deeds in the reverence they deserve. To know your ancestors is to know yourself. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this live stream tonight. We weren't planning on doing a live stream tonight, but a lot of people asked about it because we've done one for the last 3 weeks running. So we decided to do one, so it was all a little bit last minute. So I do apologise, especially to those in Europe, about the late time that we're streaming tonight. As like I say, it wasn't fully planned. I managed to get an article out early, and that's going to be the focus of the discussion tonight, which is Folkish Heathenism. But before we get to that, I'd just like to say a few things. Sorry, again, I do really apologise to especially the Europeans for the late time. And I can see that some people are busy in the chat. And thanks, Mason, for that beautiful comment that you give me there over on Facebook. But I have been busy lately making pendants again after I finally got my setup safe. I had a small fire incident, which made me have to rethink how I designed my setup there. But anybody that has been asking about pendants, and there has been a few people, there should be some back on the website. I'm hoping by the weekend. And I think that's about it before I start. But now to the main topic of tonight, which is Folkish Heathenism. I was reminded again recently of the importance of establishing what Folkish Heathenism is, because it's constantly being attacked. So we're going to go into a little bit about it, what it is, what it means to be Folkish heathen, a Folkish heathen, and why it's essentially, implicitly, heathenism is implicitly Folkish anyway. But we will go through that a little bit, and then we'll go on to what I believe is the main topic for tonight, or what I hope to be the main topic, which is the motives and reasoning behind these attacks. As I say, I was recently reminded of such when a friend of mine was attacked on Facebook by these, how should we call them, these universalist heathens. And the viciousness of their attacks in general, and how it plays into the bigger role of what's going on at the moment in the West, especially Europe, and how it has been designed, actually. This attack is nothing new, but like I say, we'll get into all of that. But before we do, I'd like to play the second video we ever made here at Mimirs Brunnr, which kind of puts our position quite clearly in the folkish realm, shall we say. So without any further ado, I'll play this video. It's only a short one, so don't worry. And it'll give me a chance to get a glass of water, as I seem to have forgotten to do that. Alright, so here's the video.
Folkish Heathenism. Folkish Heathenism is a Folkish heathen, a Folkish heathen, and why it's essentially, implicitly Folkish anyway. But we will go through that a little bit, and then we'll go on to what I believe is the main topic for tonight, which is Folkish Heathenism. I was reminded again recently of In a world of illusion, blood remains the only truth. Blood was the first temple at the birth of religion. It was the first philosophy at the dawn of man. Blood is the unspeakable, for it came before the word, and all empires born of it fell when they betrayed it. Blood is the field and the air, the beginning and the end, and when threatened, it demands all born of it to rise to its defense. This is the true bloodlust, the unquenchable thirst for life. You, as an incarnation of your sacred blood, contain the hopes, dreams, and combined efforts of all who came before. In your name, wars have raged, countless heroes have fallen. All trials of nature were overcome, so that you may breathe. The idea that bore you, by its will alone, has proven itself a force of nature, unstoppable in its desire, unyielding in its arrogance. Nothing was spared that stood in its way. The truth that is blood is immortal. It is the dwelling of all ancestral soul, and failure to protect it signals an end to all. You are the horizontal and the vertical. You are where blood and destiny meet. In this time, you are its champion. It is you that stands before the eternal question, and it is you that is charged with its answer.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for the echo there. I didn't notice it till the last minute because I was grabbing a drink of water. But like I say, that quite clearly put our standpoint on all of these, this type of idea of folkish heathenism. We are definitely folkish heathen here at Mimirs Brunnr. And tonight we're going to explain a little bit why we're folkish heathen. I wrote an article about this today. I did it kind of fast because I wanted to get this live stream up, and when I realized that people, there was a demand, people wanted to see a live stream this weekend, I thought I'll try and get an article up. It's been something I've been meaning to do for a very long time now, because it's a topic that consistently gets brought up, especially on places like Facebook. And I'm not going to name all the groups involved in these attacks. I think most people are probably aware of them. They're universalist heathens, which is an oxymoron in many ways. And in the article, I outline this a little bit. I talk about the burial mounds, first of all. And that's a point that really needs to be stressed. And I did write an article. The article I wrote recently was Folkish Heathenism. But I wrote one a while ago, maybe about a month ago. With ancient burials, blood, soil, and belonging, where I go into a little bit of detail on what these burial mounds were, and how important they were in establishing our sense of identity, sense of self. It will come as no surprise to many people here that most academics and scholars, whilst they do look at it from a more atheistic point of view, they at least acknowledge the fact that most of the early faiths were very ancestral based. That is, that the veneration of our ancestors was one of the most important aspects of these faiths. And that in many ways, many of the deities that we have, even in the Norse mythology, which we're going to get to, may even be ancestral. I mean, we have it with the Ingviones, which Tacitus talks about. But these ideas of the burial mound, and sorry, I'm just trying to get my grip here on the situation. Like I say, I've had a bit of a busy day, and I wasn't expecting to do this, but bear with me and we will get there. Burial mounds. But in this article I did there, Ancient Burials, Blood, Soil and Belonging, I talk about how ancestor veneration was exceptionally important in these practices. In the UK, which is obviously where I'm from and where most of my research is, where I base most of my research, we see recent which I discussed in this article, recent archaeological evidences where even mummification was practiced in a kind of way, not quite as you would imagine in Egypt, but certain type of mummification, where the bodies were preserved and even tied together to remain intact as a full skeleton. And it appears from the wear on these bones that these ancestral bones, were brought out at important times of celebration of the ancestors and honoring them. So, for me, the whole idea that heathenism is outside of an ancestry, which is what folkish means. Folkish is that pertaining to the folk. It is an ancestral lineage that we honor. Anybody that's been to any kind of modern hearth, a moot or a blot, will note that many of the ceremonies revolve around ancestral worship, honoring them, thanking them. Because as I say in that video there, the short video, blood was the first temple. Before we knew anything of the world, before we could explore it, we knew our mothers, we knew our fathers, we knew our siblings. It would only, and in my own personal story too, that I shared a little bit, I'm not sure in which stream, but in one of the streams where I talk about how when I read the Bible, I had a good look at it. I was seeking God, or what I thought was God at that time, as singular. And we'll get to some of the universalist ideas soon. And I did not find any divinity in the Bible, none at all. Personally, it was not a thing that I attached to, and I found it completely disagreeable, actually. I swore never to follow such a vengeful and hateful deity that seemed to despise my very existence. And the first place I looked after to fill this void, I mean instantly, after finishing it and putting the book down, it took me a few days to read it, about a week or so. I thought, well, what am I going to do? Because there was an empty feeling in me. I won't deny that. I felt, well, there must be more to this life. There must be more here. And this is when I was 18. And that is when, as my mother had already passed by then, that is when I immediately thought of her. Because if anybody's got my back, if there is any other realm, then it would be her. And I can believe that this same feeling would have been present in the ancient times. And because they were more in tune with their surroundings, I'm sure they had probably even more evidence to back that up than I did when I was 18. Since then, I've obviously gained more evidence, personal evidence. This is not academic evidence. This is personal experience that relates to my own existence, which for many people, spiritual path is a personal thing. But like I said, these ancient peoples of Britain, at least, were certainly worshipping their ancestors. This is referenced many times, even in the ancient world, from Roman and Greek texts too, of national gods and goddesses. These were commonplace in the ancient world. In the article, I mentioned Gutta, or Gita, who was a god of the Geats. He was a progenitor god and a national god, and who in the Answers rune poem we see is revealed to be none other than Woden or Udin. Which, again, in the heathen article, I bring up the fact that every single royal house in the of Anglo-Saxon times, of the Anglo-Saxon period, trace their origin back to Woden. there was no in every single one of them. This shows that these national gods, these gods of the folk, or as we call Woden the All-Father, was the father of all of the Anglo-Saxons and many of the Scandinavian nations. Would also, many of their royal lineages trace themselves back to Woden or some other deity. So the idea that any kind of heathenism cannot be grounded and based in ancestry is kind of absurd. If you want to practice anything remotely similar to what our ancestors did, then it is quite clear that ancestry plays a massive part in that. So this idea of a universalist is just complete. It boggles my mind, yet it is part of the modern culture at the moment. To attack it as some kind of hateful thing, when the whole basis of ancestral worship, which is practiced in many cultures today, and suffers no such attacks as it does in the West. Any idea outside of that is absolutely absurd, and I really want to lay this down. I mean, the burial mounds of our ancestors, the combination of blood and soil, the land and the earth imbued with the bones of the ancestors. I mean, you cannot get a clearer definition of what heathenry is. And like I say, these burial mounds that date back to the Neolithic in Britain go straight through to Anglo-Saxon times. In fact, Anglo-Saxons reused many of the Bronze Age burial mounds because they reused the Bronze Age burial mounds because they were generally built in high grounds, which is where the Anglo-Saxons built many of their settlements. So they themselves are showing not only venerating those of themselves that have passed, but venerating the ancestors of the land, those that were there before them. Some people see these people as very different. I do not, but that's probably a subject for another stream. I believe that the northern people have maintained a certain degree of racial homogeneity for thousands of years. And it can be seen throughout the mythology as we trace it back. So, what is generally termed as blood and soil, or nature and ancestry, are the foundations of any heathen faith. And like I say, I find it kind of strange that I have to. I mean, I know that many people listening here, they already know this. I'm talking to maybe a kind of an echo chamber in many ways, but at the same time, it is something that we really have to start defending more and really putting our arguments out there, because I see these attacks increasing and growing. Whole organizations attacked, defamed, both, and not only on an individual level of some idiot on Facebook, but in the mainstream media. That any self-identification with your ancestry and bringing that into your faith is somehow evil. It's hateful. It's hateful to venerate those that came before. So we have nationalist deities, which were like I say, the mainstay of most of the peoples of the planet, and still are, as I said. You can travel to many what we call more primitive places of the world, and most of their ceremonies will revolve around their ancestors, great and renowned ancestors. We see it in Norse mythology. I mean, the sagas. What are they? They're the deeds of men before us. They're great deeds. Many of the rune stones put across the Scandinavian landscape are in honor of an ancestor that has passed, a remembrance that still stands to this day. That over thousands of years, that stone was never knocked down, never removed. And the same goes for the burial mound. These burial mounds, in many cases, were filled with riches, especially the Anglo-Saxon ones. But when the Viking horde came over, they didn't dig them up. They honoured and venerated those that were before. They knew, I remember watching a documentary, actually, on mainstream television. Well, I watch it online, but it was from mainstream television. Sadly, you have to watch these things sometimes because you get great insights, at least in the visual sense. But some of the insights from the people producing the shows are somewhat questionable. And I remember in this documentary, we call it, although it was pretty poor in many ways, they were talking about the great Anglo-Saxon burials at Sutton Hoo, and how they were filled with gold and wealth, and the main presenter asked their so-called expert why the Vikings, when they came, they didn't raid these burial mounds. And the expert said, well, they probably didn't know there was gold in them, which is absurd, as Vikings were still, the Viking era, they were still practicing such types of burial and would have known exactly what was in them. They didn't raid them for the very reason that a Christian wouldn't dig up another Christian's grave. It would be it would be not seen as a very good thing, and it would pissing off the ancestors was not something that people would want to do lightly. Like I say, just as they wouldn't in any Christian. In fact, burial mounds, burials in general, are seen as, and were definitely seen as, claims on the land. To put your ancestry within the land or the tomb or the womb, as I often say, because there is the connection with the womb aspect there, as you put your ancestors in the land to be reborn out of it. But I'd have to do something. So I was just checking there. I'd have to do some, probably a stream on that alone, as it's a very vast topic. So yes, grave robbing is a disgusting and insult to the dead. I'm just checking the comments here. And was actually carried out, the grave robbing of the burial mounds in the UK only happened, I believe, in about the 1500s, when the ideas of our ancient faiths had been completely removed by then, and Christianity had taken complete hold of the folk. Well, there was still remnants of it, but for the most part, it had taken a great hold on them. So they'd forgotten what these mounds really were. All they knew was, and it was ordained by royalty, by the way, the robbing of these. The royalty got their cut. And this is something we're going to touch on a little bit here about the betrayal of nobility, or how nobility betrays blood, or has betrayed blood, and how they are not really noble anymore. But obviously, this did not last long. Well, it lasted a very long time, sorry. But at a certain point, we start to get universalist ideas, and actually, they start before Christianity. They start with empire, which brings me neatly to the betrayal by nobility of blood. One of the greatest places to see this is the Roman Empire. Now, people ask me often, why do we here at Mimirs, at least, make videos that seem to be slightly attacking Rome? Well, Rome was a great nation. The Romans started out as a folk, a group of people. They secured their land and territory and became powerful. Then they started to expand. No longer were they interested in treaties of peace, but they wanted domination. domination of other folk. Because as the wealthy amongst these people got wealthier, their greed increased. And as their greed increased, it was no longer just good enough to rule over their own. They wanted to rule over others, because the more people you rule over, slaves or taxpayers, it doesn't really matter. Well, according to Tacitus, it was not much different. The Germanic peoples didn't see much difference between somebody that was forced to pay tax and somebody that was a slave. In fact, Tacitus mentions that the Germanic peoples didn't really understand slavery because of this. But as these people, these individuals amongst the folk became more powerful and their greed increased, they began to expand. Now, this was not an expansion of their own people. It was not stealing land so that they could occupy it. It was not stealing, but it was not taking land so that they could occupy it themselves. They did not just want land, they wanted the people on it. And this is where we start to see national deities being replaced by more universalist ones, or we see the idea of certain gods being aligned with other gods. So when the Romans first conquered a people, they may look at their deities, and first they preached tolerance. They were happy to converse with the Druids. They were happy to try and sell the Druids their idea. The Druids of the Celtic people. We have Caesar writes about talking with certain Druids, etc. And at first they go, hey, look, this deity here is very similar to our deity over here. So if we build a temple to our deity and it's for kind of both, then, we can honor both of our deities, because they're probably the same. We start to get this universalist idea where national gods are replaced by more general ideas of a deity. But it wasn't long before the Roman Empire reached the British Isles, which by many Roman accounts was the heartland of the Druids, the teaching place, where the Druids went to learn their spirituality, learn their craft, learn to recite the histories and the philosophical insights. And what was the first thing that the Roman Empire did after preaching tolerance in Gaul? What was the first thing it did when it got to Britain? Well, it nearly lost its complete empire by chasing the Druids to Anglesey to destroy them. Once they were destroyed, then the old gods became less remembered. The new gods of the Roman Empire became more prominent, and thus the people now were spiritually enslaved. They had forgotten the names of their gods and instead replaced them with the names of the other, the subjugate, those that they're enslavers. And this has been a tactic ever since and even before. You can conquer and dominate a people physically, but when they have their own ideas of self, when they're aware that they are different, that they belong to something that is powerful and has lasted and has come throughout the eons through their ancestry, they are much harder to continually subdue. It is proven in Rome. The Gauls were conquered many times but continually resisted. Same with Britain. So to destroy the national gods was of paramount importance. To replace them with their own and destroy the priestly class was more important than defeating any enemy, any physical threat. Because the physical threats would just continue if a people believed that they had their own self-determination, that they did not want to be slaves of the Roman Empire, that their history demanded that they be free. That the stories of their ancestors still rang through their holy places. The memories of these ancestors who came before them and did great deeds, whose mounds they could see and visit. You cannot allow such a thing to take place. The Romans, before the Christians too, at Anglesey, many don't know this, but at Anglesey, the Druid stronghold, they chopped down whole forests. The sacred forests on the Isle of Man, as it was called then. And actually, there was an archaeological dig at a site believed to be where the Druids made their last stand. And when they were digging, there was actually a TV show about this. And when they were digging there, they noticed, at first they thought they'd found nothing. There was this great earthworks that looked like an Iron Age fort. But there seemed to be hardcore. It seemed to hit a natural layer of stone. It wasn't until one of the archaeologists dug a little bit deeper that he realised under this stone was the ancient remains of this Iron Age fort. So it begs the question, although they made no conclusion on the TV show, why was the whole site covered? Absolutely covered. They wanted to block it out. They chopped and burnt down the forest and blocked out any remnants of this ancient civilization, of the Druid stronghold. They feared something more than the physical. They feared the spiritual. In fact, when they did find and dig this Iron Age burial mound, Iron Age fort, they found right in its centre a Bronze Age burial mound that would have been as old to the people there as that Iron Age fort was to us. Yet right within the middle, right within the centre of this Iron Age fort was a Bronze Age, a 2,000 plus year old Bronze Age burial mound. Who was buried there, we don't know now. But it must have been some great figure of history that was still venerated and remembered and had a whole community built around him. Or her, I'm not sure. I don't think they excavated it, or if they did, they didn't find anything. But this whole idea, so when we look at the national and the universalist, we see that it comes with domination. It comes with the idea to dominate you. And this is an important point. It is not here, as it states, to be tolerant. It's just here to be tolerant and fair and equal. It is here to subjugate. Any idea of universalism always is in subjugation of the nations, and this is all nations. At the moment, it is our faith that is under attack. But any other folkish-based faith, as I said, there are many around the world today, they will all come under the same attack. When the great empires, such as the British Empire, from which my ancestry is again the betrayal of blood, like Rome, people don't realise that there were many. Rome was not in any way folkish. I believe now. I think his name was Philip the Arab. Was one of their emperors. Just to give you an idea, the great General Agricola was not a Roman. He was a Gaul. Rome was not a blood-based society because it was an empire, as I stated. And empires later, like the British Empire, who took most of its standards from the Roman Empire. In many ways, it is the true descendant of the Roman Empire. Did the very same. Obviously, by now, the European peoples had already had their spirituality removed and were now Christian. But they took this holy book, now without their own, now my people, betrayed by their empire, were sent across the world to go create an empire that they did not benefit from. Just as the American empire now. People were scathingly attacked the American empire, but I don't see any Americans benefiting. Well, except for the wealthy few. And that was the same with the British Empire. But these people, devoid now of any belonging to their folkish traditions, will then spread their universalist one. Because it's kind of like the idea that it was good enough for me. We see this in America, especially with the religious ceremony of circumcision. Many fathers in America now get their children circumcised because they were. Because their parents were sold the lie that it was some kind of medical reasoning. When it is purely based in Semitic faiths. There's nothing to do at all with any hygiene. Without getting too crude here, if you're worried about if the true reason for circumcision, sorry for going on a bit of a tangent here, is hygiene, then I've got to worry about the hygiene of the people that would need to cut off a part of their body so they don't have to clean it. It seems quite insane to me. But like I say, that's a little bit of a tangent. But the same principle applies when people have lost their own spirituality, their own sense of identity. They will then spread the plague of universalism because it's all they've got to hold on to. If they're wrong, then they've made a big mistake. So we see that was the same. They went there first with tolerance. Hey, some random tribe or group of people. Here's the holy book. The true God. Don't worry about all that ancestor worship over there and your own national deities, your sense of identity. Here, take this book. And by persuasion, tolerance, and by the sword, slowly the world became conquered by the Abrahamic faiths. People lost their sense of who they were, lost their sense of belonging, which paved the way essentially for modernity, for globalism. The idea that nobody's really that different. So when we look at the universalist God and the national God, as I said earlier, we cannot see it in any other way than that of an attempt to remove identity, thus conquer. Just as the Romans did with the Brits, and just as Christianity did to the world. It is an alien faith, in my opinion. Now, I'd like to stress here, I do not hate Christians. Christians are my blood. And I would like to, and I'm happy to engage in conversations with them. I just wish they could see that Christianity is fundamentally based in universalism, and that whitewashing of their own ancestry and history and the degrading of it will only degrade themselves. Many don't realize that if you look at the Old Testament, it is quite clear that the Christian God is a national God himself. He, as all national gods, favor their own. How many nations did God destroy for the Israelites? He didn't care much about the Egyptians, did he, when he killed all of their newborns? He didn't care much for the people of Palestine when he removed them. And God said that I would destroy them. When the Israelites were fearful. So in my opinion, the root of the Christian God is a Semitic national God. And as I said, when you start believing and worshipping of a people's death is you lose your self-determination. You lose your own sense of identity and take on that of the alien. And that's something to understand. And like I said, these are faiths of domination. I mean, if you look at Christianity, has had its time in many ways of trying to conquer the world, and now Islam, another Abrahamic faith, stem out of the same belief system, the same nationalistic God. Now it is showing its face in the West. Demands for Sharia law echo in every single Western nation. They are not here, whilst on the one side our politicians plead tolerance, which we've heard before. As I said, they always come with tolerance in hand. Tolerance and respect. Cromwell based his, just as a slight off point here, Cromwell based his whole movement of tolerance, religious tolerance. Yet, he oversaw the chopping down of the oaks because the locals, the common man, had not forgotten his past even so many years later, and they were still getting married under oak trees, etc. His tolerance only went so far. So again, now we see the Western world say, no. We must be tolerant of Islam. We must be tolerant of all of these other faiths. Yet when we express our own, there is no tolerance for us. Because these are aggressive religions that seek to dominate. The great mission of the Christian faith and of the Islamic faith is to convert. They don't care who you are, where you are, or what you believed. Believe in their God or else. All right? We see it all the time. This is not a new concept. History has repeated itself many times, and this is what is so important. I felt it very important to have this conversation because we need to understand what's going on here. Not just go, I'm a folkish heathen, I don't care. And we're going to get to that in a minute. We're going to get to the real motives behind some of these things, or what I believe are the motives. But before we do that, I would like to just take a little break so I can grab a cup of tea. So I'm going to play a video that kind of sums up what we want to create. What folkish heathenism is really about. That is land, children, and community. So, I'll be back soon. I hope you enjoy the video.
Without land, we have nothing. The land is the lifeblood of a people. The land shaped you when you eat. The inner essence of each is merged and reflected in the other. Under tutelage of the long winters, the Northern European became brilliant. What at first seemed harsh and cruel, taught him to be practical, plan ahead. In the vastness of the forest, he learned to reflect in solitude. He danced around great pyres in reverence to its majesty. As he stared into the deep dark woods, they stared back. From architecture to ancient groves, he carved his inner beauty into the land. The land provides us with nourishment for both body and soul. And like a babe torn from its mother, a man without land lacks the essentials of life. In modern times, land has lost all spiritual value, whilst going up monetarily. Borders once marked with our dead are now being overrun. With claims no man can be illegal, borders are being contested. Not by standing armies, but by intellectuals who question their very concept. As our grip on our sacred homelands loosens, so in turn does our grip on existence. None are as precious to us as our children. A simple smile upon their face can put the world into perspective. The culmination of the efforts and struggles of not only us, but all who came before. They are the literal embodiment of our future. Through our ancestors, we stretch back to the world's beginnings, and through our children, we extend into eternity. As a sacred link in this unbroken chain, we are duty-bound to secure their future. Failure to do so means all ancestral effort was ultimately in vain. Not only symbolic of our future hopes, but also of noble ideal. With boundless energy and limitless imagination, they represent the noble soul in its purest form. With shameless joy they express themselves, always giving full attention to every action, no matter how small. To observe children at play is to observe the magic of the universe in full creative form. With the human experience becoming a condition, the noble nature and energetic enthusiasm of the child are reduced to disorders. Nothing is sacred. Under guise of protection, poison is injected. Under guise of freedom, pure minds polluted. For those with none to care, a living hell is manifest. As they strip our children of their purity, they strip us of our nobility. For only a wretched bastard would allow such indignity. Community is what we build upon the land and bring our children up within. Through community, man can achieve a truly genuine life. Within a sound community, a man has value. He belongs. Belonging is crucial for healthy development, and with it, the man gains purpose. Purpose gives meaning to action. Through it, even death is conquered. A man with such self-worth becomes impenetrable to lies. For he knows life's value and his duty to it. As the local is replaced by the global, men lose their value. He shops in international corporations, and in the news he hears of far-off floods and tragedy. The local becomes mundane. It begins to shrink till he himself shrinks. He loses touch with his surroundings and eventually himself. Lacking in all self-worth, he feels powerless and becomes apathetic to even his own destruction. Without community, man is reduced to mere existence without context. He becomes the walking dead.
Okay, I remembered myself. I forgot to unmute. So welcome back, and I see a lot of comments there. I forgot to undo a few things. I see a lot of comments there praising the video, and I'd like to remind people that Mimirs Brunnr is not a one-man construction. It's not just me. I'm the voice, and I do write. But the visuals there are done by Rhys, who's in the chat tonight. And he's an exceptionally talented guy and a very close friend now of mine for our work. I consider him one of my best friends, actually. And also there, the music was composed by the talented Halindir. I'm very grateful to have found these folk to help me with this endeavor and get their message out. Rhys hides little things in the video that if you watch a few times you might see. It takes me a bit to catch them, but he puts his own stories in there too, and his own narratives, which are just as powerful as the ones I'm speaking. And the same too with Halindir, with his music. So I'd just like to remind people that Mimirs Brunnr is much more than just me. But now to the discussion of tonight. As I said, just to recap a little bit so we know where we are. Folkish heathenism is heathenism. There isn't really any other type of heathenism. And we're going to go into that a little bit. It is very much ancestral based, and I say even some of the main deities are considered ancestral gods, as I said with Woden and the Anglo-Saxon royal houses. So the idea that somebody would want to honor or worship my god seems a little off to me. Now, of course, there's going to be a few people in this modern age of universalism and globalism, they get confused and are probably seeking, they probably feel some kind of connection and are genuine in their interests and genuine in their exploration of our ancestors and our faith and our gods and goddesses. I'm sure that is true. But I have a certain amount of suspicion about these groups that before they mention a word on divinity, before they mention a word on seeking divinity, on honouring their ancestors or honouring the gods and goddesses, you see terms such as heathens against hate, or whatever other terms they use. I forget them all. But there are a lot of them where that's their first statement. If you go to their Facebook pages or their websites, that's right there, bang, in your face, first thing you see, before you learn of any god or goddess. I have my suspicions about these types of groups and what their true motives are. As a folkish heathen, I would tell all people to seek their own ancestors, to honour them and venerate them, and live in a manner that they believe does them justice. Because as I discuss in Truth of Blood, you're created from them. I mean, you are shaped by their very essence, by their struggles, by their love. It shaped you. You cannot. Why would, if I were to go to some island somewhere and find some tribe that still practices, they would just think it absurd that I would venerate and, I mean, show respect to their gods, of course, their ancestors. Respect is a thing that is well noted in heathenism. But they're not my ancestors. To worship them would be to dishonor myself, would reduce myself, and dishonor my ancestors. It's quite absurd, but like I say, back to the point as we said, with this idea of a universalism comes domination. And this has been true throughout history. There can be no exceptions to this. Nobody ever wanted universalism for the right reasons. At the top, anyway. Like I say, as when you've had your culture destroyed and your very identity reduced, then of course you start to take on the mask of your oppressor, your conqueror. Because you have no identity of your own, and that is the key point here. So, if we look around us, I mean, just to take it back a little bit, I did an interview with Red Ice where we talked about the rune ban. Now, although I made it very clear in my article that I wrote upon it and in the interview as well, that I did not believe that they would ban the runes, people not willing to listen maybe, or just looking at titles, accuse me of overreacting. Why bring this up? It's not going to amount to anything. It's pointless. It's just, it's a conspiracy. It's all a conspiracy theory type idea. But the point I was trying to make is that there has been a continuous attack upon anything that relates to our identity and ancient faiths. Recently, we've had the academic idea that we should ban the word Anglo-Saxon from the academic language because it fuels separation and hatred, etc., and all the terms that we've become used to, all the terms that we get accused of daily for merely existing and wanting to honour and protect our folk. And this is the point of gradual, as I said earlier, it's no different to what the Roman Empire did and what the British Empire did later. It is this idea of tolerance, whilst at the same time undermining the national identity of the people. like I say, with the ban on runes, it wasn't about banning the runes. It was about associating those runes with something evil. Or trying to. It's about making that connection. Because what that does is, say you have Joe Bloggs. He starts to take an interest in the ancient ways of his folk. So he starts to look into it. When he does a Google search or whatever search engine he uses, he comes up with heathenism. And he'll find a site that says heathens against hate. Like, what this? I'm not hateful. I'm a good guy. Oh, there's these other heathens that are hateful. There's what about the runes? Oh, the runes could be symbols of hate. Well, I don't want to be associated with that. I don't want to be associated with white supremacy or Nazi or called a Nazi. So what it does is it turns people away. They become fearful to look into their own past. Once you have a people fearful to look at their own ancestry, to venerate and revere their own identity, well, then you've got an empty shell that's easily moldable. And that was the point I was trying to make with that piece. It was to show that this is continuation of something that's gone on for ages. I brought up in that interview the fact that I believe it was the Norwegian Winter Olympics team had runes on their jumpers. And the knitter, the person that had made the design, didn't want to give out the pattern for fear that her jumper may show up at some nationalist rally because it had runes on it. I mean, the absurdity to be fearful of runes. I mean, how people still want to play this down, and playing this down, by the way, is very, very dangerous. It's as bad as attacking. Playing this down when people, like I say, good people. I know many heathens in many different organisations that are folkish. And I've heard stories from all of them where they've been attacked, whether it be in the media, whether it be personally. They've lost their jobs. This is something that I forgot to mention in my last stream when I was talking about the warrior ethos. In our age, just to state what you believe openly, just to state that you care for your ancestors is a bold act. Just to say I love my folk is a bold act worthy of a warrior in the past. People, they will try to ruin you. So why do they want to ruin me? Why do they want to attack me? What is it that I threaten them? What is it about me that threatens these universalist heathens? I don't bother them. Till this article, I haven't bothered anybody. I don't care to speak about them normally. But they still want to attack me and people like me. Who, from what I can see, do their best to ignore them too. Like I say, the true motive here is not spiritual. These people that at least run these organizations are not there for seeking any spiritual revelation. They're not there to get closer to divinity or their ancestors. These people are here in direct opposition to me. That is their main focus. Well, not me personally, but what I represent and people like me. They make it clear by their opening statements on all of their websites, as I said, where they say they are against hate. And I am hate, apparently. Anybody that is not suspicious of such behaviour needs to think very, very deeply about what they're looking at here. Because why would you do that? As I said in the article that I wrote, the Folkish Heathenism one, there are many universalist faiths out there that are aggressive, that believe that only their worldview counts and will actively seek to destroy any others. We see it happening with Islam now. Why not become Islamic? They would fit right in. Yet they want to become they want to become a heathen. They want to go back to an ancestral belief system. I don't believe that for 1 minute. I don't believe that the people starting these organizations are in the least bit genuine about their intent. Yet ironically, it is folkish heathens that are told that we're using our faith for political means. But the problem there is that there is no separation between faith and state in reality. There is, how can you separate the laws of a nation and its faith? What is good is determined by what people believe, and what people believe is their faith. So this idea of separation will only breed atheistic societies, which is what it has done in the West. For the most part in Europe, Christianity is dead. There are no, because this is the slow degradation of the society. First they tolerate, then they destroy, but then they give you some other faith, so Christianity in this case. Then they slowly destroy that till you have nothing. It would happen the same with the Islamic world. Despite what they think, they think they're on a power trip at the moment because the globalists are pushing them, but that come for them too. These modern Muslims in the Western world are not very Islamic. I can assure you on that. In abiding their laws. How many of them go drinking? So when we start to look at these organizations, I believe there is a more insidious motive to them. They're not acting out of good faith. They're there to bring people that have a genuine interest in faith and bring them a genuine interest in our ancient ways and convince them that any true essence of that ancient way is hateful, and they must subscribe to this universalist one, much the same as the Christians did in the early conversion period. Yeah, Buddha and Jesus is not much different. Huh? I think in early Anglo-Saxon texts, they had Jesus talking to the cross when it was a tree, because they knew the association of the tree, because they had to try and somehow convince the Anglo-Saxons that Jesus was not a coward. Because to them, allowing such indignity as he did was not worthy of any deity. That's for sure. But these organizations play into the role, like I say, just as the attempted room ban, just as this proposal to ban the word Anglo-Saxon. And many others, like I say, with the things, the runes are now Nazi, if you have a rune because somebody used them. So that makes it very easy to attack us, right? You can set up fake organizations and you can use symbols in hateful ways and then say they're hateful. I mean, come on. We live in an age of mass illusion. People cannot tell the real from the fake. Take a look at any movie these days. Most of it's green screen, but most people don't notice. We live in the world of illusion, and yet many people believe these headlines. And they can write anything they want because we have no outlet, except for places like this, what I'm trying to do now. But how many people are listening? Total about 160. There's 7 billion people in the world. We don't have the reach. We don't have the ability to reach these people, so these people are convinced by these lies. And I believe as folkish heathens, we need to actively start denouncing this. Because, as I said, with the rune ban, I learned quite a bit. I saw so many heathens that I thought were good intentioned, diminishing it. Like it doesn't matter. Like, oh, it doesn't matter, it won't happen. Well, you're just allowing them to denigrate your faith. It's absurd. We should be actively defending ourselves in this instance and showing what we really are. If we don't put our message out there, no one will hear it, that is for certain. And all they will hear is the mainstream. And like I say, this is about turning people away. This is globally, I mean, these people that are say they're anti-globalist, most of these heathen groups, they're kind of pretentious and they pretend that they're anti-corporation and anti-globalism and anti all of these things. But the only true, if you want to really oppose globalism, then you need to reinstate the ancient faiths. Because like I say, physical domination is one thing, but it's not enough. It is spiritual domination that will eventually lead to atheism, because that's what they do. That's been the motive throughout history. The gods become less and less important as empires grow. The gods become less and less venerated. And with Christianity, as we saw in the Western world, Christianity came, it reached its high point, then it was pulled down. As I say, they come with tolerance, they come with compromise, and they end with your destruction. I mean, many people don't know that, or many people have heard of Kudnov Kalergi and the Kalergi plan. Now, if you look this up, much like it's actually, I wanted to mention this earlier, if you look up Folkish Heathenism on Wikipedia, it's constantly aligned with, it's just white supremacist or Nazi or blah, 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 all these terms. Well, I mean, these people don't even understand some of these terms. White supremacy is the idea that is the idea that one race, or in this case, the white race, which they say doesn't exist, but so the European has domination over other peoples. I can think of nothing quite as opposite to that as Folkish Heathenism, where we tell other peoples to go worship their own deities, follow their own paths. I think something closer to a supremacist ideology is that of universalist heathen, that are asking others to come and worship their ancestors. I don't know. But this is the confusion of words and the confusion of terminology that we have to face in these times. Love for our ancestors and our folk is hateful. Love for anybody else is virtuous. I mean, it's turning things on their head, as I know, but the same with the Kalergi plan. If you look up the Kalergi plan on Wikipedia, it will instantly tell you that this is an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Well, anybody that's read any of Kalergi's works will know that he was a pan-Europeanist and wanted to reduce the European people to a mixed race peoples, which he likened ignorantly to the ancient Egyptians. But what a lot of people don't know is that in Kudnov Kalergi's work, practical idealism, he talks directly about paganism versus Christianity, and how Christianity, obviously, he praises Christianity, and he hates paganism. And there's a very good reason why. And he actually says that paganism is rooted in the European, and Christianity is rooted in Asia, actually. He said essentially that the Buddhist is a better Christian than a Germanic Christian. Because the Germanic man, his ideals are rooted in paganism, even in their religion. And he calls for its destruction. He fears a man that wants to bring about universalism, a slave race, if you will, which he essentially, a people with no identity, no background, nowhere to call home. He wants to bring these people about. And to do so, he believes that they need to remove any idea of paganism. You can look that up, and I recommend anyone read Practical Idealism by Kudnov Belergi. Just to show you what's going on. You make your own mind up. Don't listen to Wikipedia. Make your own mind up about whether it's just some crazy conspiracy theory or not. He goes, so I was just looking at the chat. Sorry, I still need to get used to looking at the chat, sorry. There's so much going on there that... Does a mother hen mention divide and conquer? And essentially, that's what it is. I mean, by dividing our faith into these many fractious groups, they divide our faith. I support all folkish heathens, even if I don't agree with necessarily everything they do. Because folkish heathenism is the only type of heathenism. Everything else is, like I say. I looked into some of these groups actually, trying to find out who was behind them. In one big group, I believe that the person is of Semitic origin. So obviously he's going to be a universalist heathen because he cannot be an ancestral one because he doesn't have the ancestry for it. But also he was very young, and he was head of this big group, which I'm not going to name because I have no interest in naming these people or giving them any more attention than they deserve, although I'm probably doing that a little bit tonight, so I do apologise. But it seemed to me just like a stunt. There was nothing genuine in it at all. It was just an idea, like I say, to undermine us. And I would like to see as we move forward, like I said in the stream before, this is the age of boldness to move forward, that we start to put our ideas out there more firmly. We make no compromise on what it is that we believe. Because religions are supposed to be protected by law. And like I've said, I've established, you can quite clearly establish an ancestral nature to heathenism, especially Northern European heathenism, but any heathenism really, or paganism. It's very easy to establish. It's very easy to put forward. Historically, the documents are all there. Like I say, the burial mounds, they're all there. So, and we need to start doing this. We need to go maybe on the offensive at these groups. We need to stop ignoring them and just pretending they'll go away, because they're not going to go away. And the longer they promote that we are hateful, the more people they're going to turn away from the truth to the true ancient faiths of their people. And the more people are going to be divided. Somebody in the comments says, what do universal heathens believe? I don't really know. I've browsed their pages. And it just looks like a lot of virtue signaling about how tolerant they are about everything. But us. But other heathens. It's, like I say, it's tolerance and destruction in the same hand. They are virtuous and tolerant and good in their eyes. And we represent everything that is hateful. It's just a basic black and white idea. there is bad, here is good, and anything, there is nothing in between. But the truth is that they are complete liars. They're spiritual charlatans. They have more in common with Coca-Cola and McDonald's than they do any spiritual faith. They're come picket, as I said in the article, they're spiritual vagabonds. They belong nowhere. And thus, they find solace where everybody belongs. And that is something that we need to, I believe, actively counter. We need to stop worrying about what they're going to say. Because the more we ignore them, and like I said, it was really brought home to me with the Red Ice interview. The more we ignore these people, the more we just go, oh, they're just being silly, nothing will come of it. The more we undermine ourselves. The stronger they get, and we give them every single inch of that ground by not offering any resistance. Now, obviously, like I said earlier, it's hard for us to do such a thing because we have limited reach. We have limited ability to get our message out. To the people. But we must try our bit. Our ancestors did not give up because of adversity. In fact, it encouraged them stronger. So we must rise to the challenge that is ahead of us. To show our faith as not actually hateful, but of love. A faith that cares for its own, like everybody should. A faith that wants to keep our identity, keep a sense of belonging, one of the most important things in the modern world. The sense of belonging. How many people would commit suicide? How many people would be depressed if they felt they belonged to a genuine group of people? That they had a history to be proud of. I think we could solve many of the problems that we're having with mental illness today if people had a strong sense of identity. And it is no fluke that mental illness is wreaking havoc upon the Western world. People removed of it. I mean, how many people have you heard say that white people, which what they mean is Europeans, have no culture? I mean, what the hell? How? I mean, it's bizarre in every essence, because the whole idea of culture, well, when the word was mostly used, was the idea around the arts, high art, like ballet, musicals, opera. In fact, when people were talking about culture in the 1800s, they were not actually talking about dancing around pyres. But we have culture in every meaning. We have culture in our ancestry. I mean, look at where I am from, Britain. How many nations can look at their landscape and see so many thousands of years represented, still in it? Could walk and sit on a mound overnight, sit with some ancient ancestor, long lost to time, whose memory is long lost to time. And as I covered in slightly in the article Ancient Burials, Blood, Soil and Belonging, I talk about this great sense of identity that comes with this. That knowing you belong to something far greater than yourself. And I think I posed the question of, imagine growing up, because I posed the article against the fear of death, the idea that death is that any talk of death in the modern world is seen as fearful. Stay away from it. We're not sure what to say. But imagine a cemetery that was full of your ancestors. Mounds. Where you could walk through daily knowing that everybody buried there loved you or would love you. That your settlement was built around it. What sense of purpose would you have? The stories told about the people within the mounds. Your desires to emulate them. You could not have a more strong sense of self, a stronger sense of value. Which I would argue is exactly what all of this universalism is meant to destroy. Because the people that have a sense of self and the people have a sense of value are less susceptible to the globalism. The less they may turn away from the McDonald's or the Coca-Cola. They may stop wanting to buy things made in China and buy things made by Folkish craftsmen. They may prefer to cook their own food than buy pre-packaged meals. They may value themselves in every way. So, the biggest problem with Folkish heathenism, or true heathenism, or the only heathenism, however you want to say it, is that it is a thorn in the side of the globalist. And that is why we see these groups step up and how funded they are. Now, you might think I'm taking it a bit far here, but how does some late 20s person that's not even European start a faith that not only gets huge, but has funding, charges people for books? When I see people that have got genuine movement, where they meet regularly. I mean, these are all online based too. There is no physical nature to them. These people don't meet up. It's all online wisdom and online selling. It's just a gimmick. It's an idea that, and like I say, it's deliberate. These people behind these are not interested in their ancestors or faith. And we need to highlight this. This is what I'm trying to say. And I'm repeating myself a bit now, so I'm probably coming to the end of the stream. But I really want to bring this point home. Because we can tolerate it. We can go, oh, it's not going to happen. Oh, they're not going to ban the rules. They're not going to do this. But these people that organise these things, they may preach tolerance. But secretly, as I say in the article, they want another Verdun. For anybody that doesn't know, the massacre of Verdun was about 4,500 heathens killed by the Christians in a place that was holy to them, where they would carry no weapons. The Christian armies under Charlemagne knew this and attacked them, chopped down their tree, their Irminsul, and then beheaded them because they refused to convert. And that's where it ends when you tolerate such people on your borders. When you allow them to share the same space. We should actively be denouncing these heathens, or so-called heathen. Constantly showing them their error in their thinking. Because most of the people in these groups, they're not aware of what we're aware of. Like I say, they probably have some genuine interest in their ancestry, but they're so scared of being seen as hateful that they will stay away from any genuine idea of it, and then go, play it safe and I'll join these guys. So their numbers swell as ours dwindle. All because of lies. And it is our duty to our ancestors and our faith to actively denounce these lies, seek them out, and put them and correct them. So you might think no one's looking, but people read threads everywhere. People are interested in debates. It's a human intrigue to look at somebody arguing. If you make your points well, calmly, collectively, don't be angry. There's no point. You're in the right, they're in the wrong. You have all the facts, all the evidence that backs you and supports you. You have nothing to fear. You have nothing to get frustrated about. Let them get frustrated. Let them show their colours, so that anybody looking, anybody interested, can see them for what they are and you for what you are. All of the folkish faiths, all of heathenism is based in folk. We must show care and love to them. We must show them, but that doesn't mean tolerate any nonsense. What it means is we try to help them find their way back. But anyway, I think I'll wrap this stream up because it's getting quite late here. And like I say, I'm repeating myself a little bit. But the point is, we must defend our faith, or we will be in a very dangerous position in a very short period of time. And I do not fancy being at anything close to another Verdun. And trust me, some of these people behind these groups hate, truly hate. You can see this with some of the other things that we're seeing today in the Western world. So anyway, I'll leave it there. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Thanks for everybody that supported us recently. We made a few shirt sales, which we'd had quite a dry spell for a bit, so thank you for that. And the odd donation here and there, which again, we do appreciate. As always, remember to support us only if you can. Remember your family. You must put your family first, always, and make sure that you are in a good stead before you consider donating to anybody, let alone us. So, thank you. And good night.